Sunalei, welcome. We come now this morning with, it's another Sunday of thunderstorms here in northeast Tulsa, northeast Oklahoma, I mean. And it's really good. It's a good time for this summertime. In fact, that rain is helping the crops out here. And we're going to have a good season this year for the soybeans and other things. And so we want to be grateful for that. And in that sense, we're talking about food. So I think today we're going to think a little bit about Tsadulihatsugadu, which is, do you want bread? And let's open our Hebrew Bibles today. We're going to take a look at Psalm 34, verses 15 through 22. I'm going to make a slight adjustment to the table here. And so we're looking at Psalm 34, 15 through 22. The eyes of Jehovah are on the righteous, and God's ears are open to their cry. The face of God is against evildoers, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. When the righteous cry for help, God hears and rescues them from their troubles. God is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God rescues them from all. God keeps all their bones, not one of them will be broken. Evil brings death to the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be condemned. God redeems the life of God's servants, and none of those who take refuge in God will be condemned. Powerful reading this morning, powerful reading. So let's go to our New Testament reading today, which is John 6, 56 through 69, and it's a pretty long reading. And Cherokee, I'm just gonna read I think up through 62, because that's most of what I'm going to be talking about this morning. And so 56. Agiwiya agizgi ale agigiga adida ski. Nazgi agiya ayan ale nazgi jiya. Nazgiya ganida agayan lige iya inasdigan. Jizgi ale agiyan legi jes nadigalis do de ha aya jigana nazgiga iya yan aqualis da yan diski nazgi aya nadigalis do diski de ganis de nazgi hiana gadu galadadi nadaya lo sahi udla nazgiya di jiga yan ligei mana ja nigi ski ale nazgi jo niyoha sahi jiski ya gadu agizgi ale swa diski nige sana gans nezgi nazgi ya nawe sangi Digala wisdi dade nyoha sega gekwani nazgi yazdi unija dagi gawazda wadi dohi unada gana ya nani westa sangi nazgi ya azda ya kanohi da gago yeli yada ga. And our last verse maybe a couple more. Nakwana, Jisa, Jadanada, Udole Hansan, Gawazda, Wadidohi, Unigole, Nelis, In, Ga, Ya, Ni Dawes, Ya, Ni Doe La, Gi, Eseg La, Jigo, Nazgi, Ya, de jo de sta ha ye non ye jigo ye wa ye we Uweji, Ulisa Ladana, Naha, Jadalena, Yewole San. So, in English, John 6:56 through 69, it's shorter, we'll do the whole reading in English. Now, so, hold on for this one, this is a hard one. Those who eat my flesh and drink my blood abide in me and I in them. Just as the living God sent me, I live because of God. So whoever eats me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven, not like that which your ancestors ate and they died, but the one who eats this bread will live forever. He said these things while he was teaching in the synagogue at Capernaum. When many of his disciples heard it, they said, "This teaching is difficult. Who can accept it?" But Jesus, being aware of this, being aware that his disciples were complaining about it, said to them, "Does this offend you? Then what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before? It is the Spirit that gives life. The flesh is useless. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. But among you there are some who do not believe." For Jesus knew from the first who were the ones that did not believe and who was the one that would betray him. And he said, "For this reason I have told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted by God." Because of this, many of his disciples turned back and no longer went about with him. So Jesus asked the 12, "Do you also wish to go away?" Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom can we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and know that you are the Holy One of God." And that's pretty serious stuff there. I mean, that's, you know, sometimes I wonder if maybe Jesus was having a bad day that day when he spoke these things in the synagogue of Capernaum. You know, I mean, you think about where he was at, in the synagogue, surrounded by the Jewish elders as well as his own followers on that day. And yet, here he is laying this huge, what appears to be cannibalistic instructions upon his people. And that got their attention. I mean, it bothered them. They didn't understand what he was talking about. They didn't know where he was coming from. You know, they were using their own limited awareness and perception and thinking to try to discern what's in it for me from Jesus. And Jesus is who has, you know, all along he's been speaking in parables and in fashions that make it hard to understand where he's coming from. And that despite all this, despite everything that's happened up to this point, to these followers, or groupies as you might call them, they still, you know, they confront him about, "Hey, what's this all about? We don't get this." And Jesus at that point, you know, I don't know, maybe he had some frustration, maybe he was feeling taken advantage of, you know, maybe he was wanting to really focus on thinning out who was going to make things happen, instead of those who were just tagging along, you know, "Hey, look at me, look who I'm hanging out with, how about that?" You know, because you see that in politics and in Hollywood, celebrities today, where people just try to tag along and say, "Hey, look how great I am, look who I'm hanging out with." But in Jesus, his situation, he was saying, "No, I just want the people with me who really want to receive the bread of life. I really am challenging these people." So he presented his statement in such a way that he knew it was going to be culturally offensive. He knew it was going to make people upset. He knew those who hadn't been paying attention but were just kind of stringing along were going to walk away. He already knew all these things. So he was kind of like cleaning out the wheat from the chaff there in that day, it seems like. You know, and that's something I can relate to. As an Indian religious leader in the past, I remember RT and I, years ago, Grandpa RT, and I sitting in his house out there in northern Nevada, having a conversation about this. He was kind of reflecting on his life experience and me on my life experience. Because there have been times that he and I have both been challenged by different leaders of different nations across North America for wanting us to explain why we're working and helping out non-Indians and using our abilities to help non-Indians, knowing that they don't really care about honoring our Indian religious traditions. They don't care about the community. They don't care about us, Grandpa and me, our welfare and our well-being. That all they were doing, it seemed like, for most of them anyway, was using us to get something for themselves or stringing along so they could say, hey, look who I'm hanging out with. Look how great I am. And Grandpa and I were thinking about that, and we could relate to what Jigsaw was saying here. We could relate to this, because Spirit had called us to do these things, to reach out to all the people, and yet, just like Jigsaw, we had the same things going on. So he made the presentation difficult for these people to handle. He intentionally presented himself in such a way to offend them, to challenge their faith in their belief in the true spirit of the Word. And you know what? From time to time I have found that to be very useful, to present myself, to present the teachings in a way that challenges these people's sensibilities, calls them on their stuff, and you find out real fast who really truly believe and those who are just taking advantage. Exploitation, I'm talking about. So they fade away. And sure enough, time and again, I've seen non-Indians fading away. And they don't go off to another community. They go off for themselves, thinking only of themselves and not about building community in the Spirit of God. So I think maybe that's what Jigsaw was talking about here a little bit, and that he was using this metaphor here for the living Word in such a strong and unconventional, culturally challenging way that it made people have to reflect upon whether or not they truly believed in the teachings in the Word, and whether or not they really wanted that true bread of life. And when we think about what the psalmist said earlier, when we turn back to the psalm here, we hear the same thing, but in a different framework. Let's go back and look at that for a minute here, Yehovah is saying, the psalmist is saying that the eyes of Yehovah are on the righteous, and God's ears are open to their cry. Well, the psalmist here, Patricia D. Ahern-Kroll says the psalmist here isn't talking about the Israelites as the righteous and the wicked ones being the non-Israelites, like the Egyptians or whoever else in that time was giving them trouble. Patricia says that the psalmist was talking about the people, the Israelites in the community, those within the community who were righteous and those who were wicked within the community. And the psalmist defines the difference between the two. Wow, pretty powerful stuff when you think about it. It's just like Jigsaw was doing, Esau was saying there are the righteous ones are the ones who are really internalizing what I'm saying, and the wicked ones are the ones who are just hearing the words and doing their own thing. So the psalmist is also saying the righteous are the oppressed. The righteous are the ones who need to be rescued. The righteous are the ones who are crushed in spirit. The righteous are the ones who have been suffering from afflictions. And the wicked are the ones inflicting the suffering upon the righteous. Well, man, you know, that's pretty heavy stuff. That's pretty tough stuff, because you think about, in this sense, who's he talking about? Who's making their own people suffer? Well, you know, that's where we get into this whole who's a real Christian story? Who's a good Christian? Who's a righteous Christian? And this is what Esau is talking about very powerfully here. He's talking about who is a righteous Christian. A righteous Christian is the one who is actually eating the bread, internalizing it, and helping others. And wow, that's pretty strong stuff, don't you think? Because you look at the history of Christianity in North America, which we have talked about much, there's a lot of conversation going on in society right now about the escalation in racism and the affliction of suffering upon minorities. And the ones who are doing it are the ones who consider themselves to be the righteous. How about that? And of course the psalmist says the righteous are the rich who exploit others for personal gain within their own community. And Esau is saying the wicked are those who don't put the principles of the Word of God in their lives, in their thinking, saying, and doing, to the best of their ability. Now we all have, some days are better than others. I mean, today there's always a day that's better than others, but the fact is that Esau is challenging these people, as Douglas R.A. Hare writes, he's challenging these people on their faith. And according to the Johannine tradition, which is reflected in this reading very strongly, Douglas is saying that according to John, faith is equal to believe. Faith is about action. Faith isn't about, oh, I believe in Jesus, I believe in loving my neighbor, and oh, aren't we so wonderful because we go to church every Sunday and we believe these things and we talk about these things and we sing these wonderful songs about them. But faith is believing, and believing is doing. And if there's one thing John's into, he's into action. John is saying in this reading here that Esau is speaking about taking your faith means, practicing your faith means doing. Means helping those who are suffering, helping those who have been afflicted, help changing your ways to really reflect that the bread of life, bread of the Word, is inside you. That's what this text is about. Whether or not you, as I asked at the beginning, do you really want this bread? Do you want the bread of the teachings of Esau, the teachings of Jehovah, our Creator? Do you really want to walk your talk? That's what this is all about, and we see this over and over again because the psalmist says that God's eye is on the afflicted, not upon the wicked. That God specifically says, this is what I'm going to do to the wicked. I'm going to take their name and their memory and I'm going to erase it from history. It's going to be like they never were. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the possibility that when you die, because the psalmist says you're going to die, how do you feel about that? That when you die, your name will be gone Your memory will be gone. You will be as if you never were. That's pretty heavy duty stuff. That's serious. You go to the psalmist up here, not the psalmist, but what Esau is saying, he knew who was going to stand by him, who was going to betray him. He knows if we're going to stand by him, or if we're going to betray him, if we're internalizing the word to the best of our ability. Fortunately, his grace is good. He recognizes that we are sometimes not as good as we ought to be, or could be. And he's willing to overlook that, so long as we stay loyal to Esau in what he stands for, what he believes in, what he strives for. And that's where the real tough stuff gets into. Are you willing to really do things in that way? So, the bread of Esau is the bread of life shared through the teachings and spirit of Jehovah. Esau offers this bread through his words and example. And the question remains, do you really want this bread? Something to think about. Walk in mute. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I don't want to end on this hard note, because I've been talking hard note today. And we got the kids next door over here. I don't know what's going on, but that's okay. I got a poem for you today. I'm going to read you a poem to help you out, to help me out, to help us all out. You know, I need to hear this stuff. I'm talking just as much as you do, and I listen to it when I play this in the back. I listen to it. So, this is called Eagle Poem, and it's perfect for what we've been talking about today. And my wife and I, yesterday was something to do with Tulsa Community College.
Paint the Zoo Blue.
Paint the Zoo Blue Day. You probably heard her say that. Paint the Zoo Blue Day out at the Tulsa Zoo. We all wore blue shirts, went out there, and for a couple of hours and last evening, and got to see the eagles close up. The bald eagle, they have a habitat there where they raise the babies up. And so I have Eagle Poem by Joe Hardjo, and I have to tell you, Joe is an excellent poet. And so she's Muskogee Creek. Muskogee is what she likes to call herself. And this is her poem published in Native American Songs and Poems, an anthology edited by Brian Swan. I'm not sure when this came out. Let me see, when did this come out? 1996, so it's not that old. But you can get this at Amazon.com, by the way, in case you want it. Eagle Poem by Joe Hardjo. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, the earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you, and know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments that aren't always sound, that in moments steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion. Like eagle rounding out the morning inside us, we pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty. So again, let me remind you that Esau offered